Here we are again with Romeo. He was the moderator at the ViveMali conference on the 14th of May. We are again to get a feedback from him and to kind of ask him on his motives, why he joined the event and what was the main outcome of the event from his perspective. Thank you, Romeo. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Why did you join the event?
Well, to me it was very interesting because this event was initiated by an association that is from the diaspora, and also it was the youth. And I've been personally involved in diaspora activities myself in the past. So I saw that as an opportunity to sort of reconnect with things that I've done in the past as well. And yeah, when I heard that it was Mali, and then hopefully later on we'll discuss other countries as well, it was immediately interesting for me.
Thank you very much. So will you tell us maybe about, let's start with the premise of the event and maybe start with the speakers and how the venue and what was the style of moderation you decided to take on and why?
The whole event itself, because of the topic that we were going to discuss and also the motives of the event, we thought that it might be better to structure it as a discussion. Obviously, we would have a panel of experts, people who will sort of break down all the factors of the conflict for the audience to be able to have informed discussions. So we had Prof. Nathan, we had Faith of Jordan, and they each gave their perspective on the conflict. They started off by giving some historical accounts of the conflict, how the cultural background, the historical background, the political background affected the whole conflict, the whole situation in Mali. And the idea behind that was to give the audience a better understanding of what are the root causes. Because at the end of the day, what we decided was that we want to get to the causes, and based on a breakdown of the causes, we will try and start discussing what are the way forward, what is the way forward, what are some of the perspectives, some of the elements that we need to factor in when reflecting on how to reconstruct Mali after this crisis. And so it was basically a discussion. The panel made a few presentations, giving their expert advice, and then there was a lot of interaction from the audience as well, people asking questions, commenting from their perspective, some of them native Malians, some others from different other countries, drawing certain parallels with what's going on in Mali. So I think it's a format that worked very well, and it allowed a lot of engagement from the youth in the audience.
And the Malians that were in the audience, so I'll touch base on them a little bit. I also heard that there was the advisor to the ambassador, Mr. Toure. So what was the input and what did you get from the Malian perspective in the audience?
Although this was, I mean, obviously Malians living in South Africa, the first thing that struck me was the fact that they are very well aware of the situation in Mali. I mean, they knew the details of the conflict, they knew some of the parameters that even us in the panel didn't know about. So their comments were very informative for us as well. And the presence of the counselor to the ambassador was also, it sort of gave another level to the conference, because it was interesting to have an official, a Malian official in the room. And he made several comments clarifying some of the misconceptions that people had about the whole crisis. For example, we discussed the possibility or some of the perceptions that the conflict might be maybe an ethnic conflict. And this is something that the counselor to the ambassador clarified very well. And he said that there's not per se an ethnic conflict in Mali. And he sort of, advised us on the way we should normally look at the conflict. So it was quite interesting to have him among the audience as well.
Going back to the panel, we'll probably start with individually with Mr. Prof. Laurie and then Mr. Faith. What will be the main points they each raised? And then after the panel, we'll probably check the one or two more points that the audience raised.
Yeah. Well, with Prof. Laurie, for example, I think he was more axed towards the theory of reconstruction. So basically, what are the things that we need to take into account when trying to reconstruct Mali? And he started off by pointing out the fact that the political situation in Mali, the historical background, the cultural differences within Mali should have been interpreted by the government as signs of, a potential bigger conflict that were going to happen. But that failure to interpret all the signs is primarily the reasons why we got into the situation that we got into Mali. So looking at that, he thought that reconstructing Mali would necessarily require for people to look back at those different signs that were present at the beginning. He mentioned the fact that there will be a need for dialogues, in different areas. There's been a lot of human rights abuses. There's been a lot of cultural differences that people need to talk about. They need to reconcile on those grounds. There's been a weakness of the state, and so the state also needs to be strengthened through those dialogues. So this is essentially what he recommended as one of the key points that we need to look at when reconstructing Mali. He also mentioned the fact that this is an initiative, obviously, that must come from within, from Malians. And obviously, this will require support from the international community, but it's not something that needs to be that needs to be driven from the outside. Faith, from his part, he also pointed out a lot of valid points. He put his focus mainly on the economic situation that prevailed in Mali. The fact that the North was essentially poor, that this combined with the Islamic influences from the neighboring countries and from, what happened in Libya and etc., and the fact that there are some fundamentalist, Islamic groups within that region, all that put together also served as a trigger for the conflict. And he also recommended that going forward, there needs to be some kind of regional action put into place to address the security threats within this region, because this is no longer just a Malian issue. As long as that Islamic fundamentalist threat prevails, or terrorist threat prevails within the region, the country will continue to be at risk. And it might go somewhere else and influence another country and cause a similar type of situation. So yeah, these were the essential points, the key points that came from the panel.
Title of the event and the main motive would be the Mali crisis, what's next, what next. So looking at that perspective and looking at your position from leading the conversations, what would be your recommendations or the whole outcome of the conversation, of the debates going forward? So what should the youth of Mali, or what should Malians look to do going forward besides, I know you already mentioned some of them, but to sum up, what will be those recommendations? And then leading to the end of this conversation between myself and you I would be asking in terms of what should we do next? What would be your advice going forward? And in terms of the next events, in terms of the actions we should start doing right now.
I think from the discussions that we had, there were a few elements of solutions that already came from the audience itself. I mean, I remember someone mentioned that we need to strengthen our regional bodies, in order for them to be able to handle similar conflict situations. Some other persons also mentioned the fact that there needs to be more engagement from the population. The population itself needs to drive those kind of issues, trying to resolve them. I think from a youth perspective, I mean, I don't intend to be over ambitious and say that the youth must go and reconstruct the Mali, but I think that every person can contribute at their level something that's going to make a difference on the ground. Having said that, we've heard the expert advice from Prof. Nathan, we've heard from Faith. Personally, I think that the youth, because they are, let's say, neutral in the whole event, and also the fact that they are positioned outside the country, they have a different take on the whole situation. So they can contribute in various ways. This is a start, for example, engaging into discussions about the situation at home. And there are plenty of initiatives. I mean, reconstructing a country after a conflict involves social reconstruction, political reconstruction, security issues, humanitarian issues, and etc. So I'm seeing the intervention of the youth mostly on the social kind of things. They can focus on education, they can focus on even humanitarian actions. I mean, I've seen collections of blankets, collections of clothes, collections of even funds for the families that have been affected by the conflict. So it's just a matter of taking that momentum and carry on with the action. So it's not just limiting ourselves to having a discussion and then we forget about it.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of putting into place an action plan and knowing exactly in which particular area of that post-conflict reconstruction we want to focus on. So I think the next step, to be very practical, is let's put together an action plan,
Yeah.
see what we think is the area that we should focus on, and then take it from there.
Thank you very much. So we almost come to the end of this conversation. I'll give you a chance to conclude from the event. What will be your last words about the event, and then we'll proceed.
I'll say, I was particularly pleased by not only the news of the organization of this event when you informed me that there was going to be a mini conference on Mali. I was very pleased about that because it wasn't an initiative from the Malian embassy, it wasn't an initiative from an international organization, it was an initiative from the Malian youth, the diaspora, so that was particularly interesting for me. And then the day of the conference arrived and the attendance was very impressive. A lot of young people, from different countries, including South Africa, and they were very interactive, they showed interest, and this is what I said at the end of the conference, that their presence there on, I think it was on a Wednesday afternoon, or I would say evening, showed that they show some interest on the things that are happening in the country. And this really, to me, gives me hope that we do have a conscious youth, and we just need to nurture it and continue to work with them, and hopefully they'll be able to make a difference.
Thank you very much. On my side, I would like to say thank you very much for joining us from the beginning.
Thank you.
For this journey. It's like you said, we want the youth won't go into action right away, but we can start somewhere. We can start with raising funds, we can start with raising awareness, we can start with acting at certain levels. So thank you very much. We'll probably have you as one of our ambassadors going forward, and we'll probably force you to join us at
some of
our other events. I think I will give you another chance to close with your message to ViveMali and your last impressions and your last words towards ViveMali and as a group, as an organization, and then as you being one of our ambassadors. Thank you very much.
It's a true honor. To ViveMali, I would say thumbs up. Excellent initiative. I've taken part in a lot of conferences. Let's just hope that this doesn't turn into another talk shop. You have my support, and unlimited support, and I'm sure that this will go much further.
Thank you so much. We'll make it proud.